fan bases are a huge factor on how media is typically seen amongst the population. You've likely seen a lot of fan bases come and wither away, but leave a huge impact. Take, for example, popular series such as Star Wars, which gathered such a large following from people.
We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
Like or hate these franchises and their respective fandoms, there is no denying that these fan bases were huge and helped spread positive buzz about the respective media. Although maybe nowadays not so much the Star Wars fandom, where nobody seems to be able to agree which movies are good or bad. One of the fan bases that I still see alive and kicking today are the ones devoted to point-and-click adventure games. Once seen as bastions in video gaming, point-and-click adventure games began to die out in the early 2000s as sales began to dwindle until finally we just saw a lack of them. But this doesn't appear to have stopped fan bases. To this day, I still see large groups discuss the games they grew up with and fell in love playing. And with the increase of indie developers and Kickstarter projects, we've even begun to see a new surge of point-and-click adventure games being made, such as Justin Whack and the Big Time Hack, and Dude, Where Is My Beer? It's actually incredible to see a fan base of a genre that was deemed to be a loss for companies resurge and continue to grow every day. But of course, I'm here to talk about just one of these point-and-click adventure games, and it's from perhaps one of the biggest in the genre, Monkey Island. Monkey Island often shows up as one of the most important games in the series, with focus usually on the first two games in the franchise, Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge. Both games were headed by Ron Gilbert, with input from Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman, with both creating the Maniac Mansion sequel, Day of the Tentacle, and Schafer creating one of the most beloved games of all time, Grim Fandango. The games were packed to the brim with parody humour and references to other popular franchises by Lucasfilms, such as Star Wars. With the success of the games, it was likely they would be seeing a third game in the series, revisiting the charming Caribbean with our hapless heroic pirate, Guybrush Threepwood. And eventually, we did. But not in the way a few people may have expected. Not long after releasing LeChuck's Revenge, Ron Gilbert left LucasArts in 1992 to start his own company, Humongous Entertainment, which saw the releases of children's video games such as Putt Putt and Freddy Fish. Grossman would also leave LucasArts in 1994 to pursue a freelance career, working with Gilbert on some projects at Humongous Entertainment, and while Schafer stayed on at LucasArts for longer, he wasn't as involved with later Monkey Island sequels. Without the lead's involvement with the sequels, there was a moment of uncertainty. There were also less LucasArts adventure games being released. From 1987 until 1993, LucasArts released a new game annually. In fact, sometimes releasing 2 games within the same year. However, after the release of Sam & Max hit the road in 1993, we only saw 2 LucasArts games released over a 4-year period, Full Throttle and The Dig in 1995. After these 2 games released, LucasArts would not release another graphic adventure game until 1997, when Curse of Monkey Island was released. But of course, Curse of Monkey Island was no longer being led by Ron Gilbert, and never had as much input from the original creators compared to its predecessors. Instead, Larry Ahern and Jonathan Ackley took on the role of designers and writers for the game, with Chuck Jordan and Chris Purvis working as writers for the game. The third game in the series also changed its style, opting for a more cartoon look than the pixelated appearance of previous games, and making several other changes, including the introduction of voice acting. After all this time, Guybrush was provided with a voice, and boy, what a voice it was.
I'm Guybrush Threepwood. Who are you?
Dominic Armato provided the voice for Guybrush, while we also saw Alexandra Boyd play Elaine Marley, and Earl Bowen as the zombie/demon pirate LeChuck.
How many times do I have to tell you, LeChuck, I just don't feel that way about you? Elaine?
By my congealed blood, you'll learn to love me. Sail with me, and I'll make you queen of the dead.
But 6 years had passed, with many questions revolving around the mysteries of the series, and a burning passion to know what happened to our favourite ghost-slaying pirate. Without the input of its creators and these new changes, would this spell disaster for the series? Well, actually, no. Curse of Monkey Island was received pretty well, receiving praise from many review magazines and even being praised by Ron Gilbert himself, who, despite stating that he didn't consider it part of his own Monkey Island universe, still praised Ackley and Ahern for the game. However, I do often see fans debating the game. Some still stand by the game, while others are dismissive of the graphics and the lack of input from Gilbert. This actually inspired me to create a survey that I distributed to a few different groups on Facebook. While I generally only expected maybe 10 people to complete it, the survey was spread throughout the fandom to the point that larger Monkey Island fan sites such as the International House of Mojo shared it. By the end of it, the survey had received 407 responses, which was incredible. To begin with in the survey, I inquired about how people viewed the graphics of Curse of Monkey Island. Out of the 407 responses to the survey, 96.3 indicated that they did find the graphics of Curse of Monkey Island pleasant to look at, with only 3.7% of responses indicating they did not. I also asked if they believed that the appearance of Curse of Monkey Island was worse or better than the appearance of Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2. Out of the 407 responses to the survey, 53.1% responded they believed it looked better than the predecessors, whereas 21.1% indicated they believed it was worse, indicating there was a bit more of a divide regarding this, although the overall consensus seems to be that fans preferred this appearance. Out of the 407 responses, 24.8 opted not to respond. I should also explain that when I first started this survey, I accidentally incorporated yes or no as answers, rather than the more sensible better or worse. As you can imagine, it caused some confusion. Fortunately, this was pointed out to me by a few people and was quickly corrected. Only 3 people appear to have selected these answers, and they all chose yes. Whatever that means. Let this be a lesson to most of you. Don't grog and create surveys. It's not a winning combination. I also asked those surveyed to rank Curse of Monkey Island in the series graphically between the 5 games of the series, rating it 1 to 5, with 1 being the favourite and 5 being the worst. To make it clear, the games in the series are Secret of Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge, Curse of Monkey Island, Escape from Monkey Island, and Telltale's episodic Tales of Monkey Island. Out of the 407 responses, a majority of fans ranked this as their favourite in the series graphically, with 37.1% selecting this. After this, 26.3 ranked this as the third in the series, 23.8 ranked it as the second in the series, 7.4 ranked it as fourth in the series, and 3.9 ranked it as the worst looking game in the series. 1.5 of the responses opted to not provide an answer for the question. Finally, in relation to graphics, I discussed the appearance and designs for the characters. Now the reason I asked this was because I noticed some people discuss how they disliked Guybrush's depiction in the game, as he became a lanky skinny man compared to how he appeared in the previous game. I mean, I suppose he just had a growth spurt over the past 6 years, but it's like he got smooshed and this was the result. However, out of the 407 responses, 88.5% responded positively to the appearance and designs of Curse's characters, while 10.4 indicated they were not fans, and 1.2 opting out of giving an answer. Moving on to the story, I asked if people believed that Curse of Monkey Island suffered from not having the same writers from the previous games, as this can often cause problems for franchises. However, for Curse of Monkey Island, it appears this was not the case, with 55.8% surveyed indicating they did not find Curse of Monkey Island suffered overall without the previous game's writers, compared to the 23.1% who did. Of the 407 surveyed for this question, 21.1% indicated they weren't sure, and instead opted for maybe. I also asked how they were satisfied with the writing and development of characters in the game, with 84.8% satisfied, while 11.3% were not. 3.9% of those surveyed opted to not give an answer. Now this is not to say that people didn't take some issues with aspects of the story. I also asked if people believed that the story would have been better if led by Ron Gilbert. Out of the 407 responses to the survey, most people just did not know, with 49.6% selecting maybe. It's a fair point. We don't know if Curse would have been an improvement or not. There may have been some factors that could have impacted this. However, 34.4% also indicated that they did believe that there would have been an improvement, and only 16% indicated that the story would not have been better. Before starting the game, the player is provided with a choice of difficulty: Normal Mode and Mega Monkey. Mega Monkey was a more difficult version of the game that incorporated new puzzles. When asked about which difficulty they opted into, 80.8% of those surveyed indicated that they chose Mega Monkey, whereas 19.2% only opted for regular. And yes, I hear you guy who says he plays on both difficulties the way God intends it. More power to you and all that. In the previous game, Guybrush confronted LeChuck on Dinky Island, where he was told that the zombie pirate was his brother Chucky. and they were children at an amusement park with their parents. The game ends with uncertainty, as Chucky stares at the camera with an evil look. 6 years passed, as fans wondered what fate befell their favourite mighty pirate. With Curse, the game explains that Guybrush was under the effects of a voodoo spell, and he escaped from the carnival in a bumper car, although not much details were provided. He sails onwards, until he finds himself caught in the crossfire of a battle between his arch-nemesis LeChuck and the love of his life, Elaine Marley. Much like the first game in the series, LeChuck pines for Elaine's affection, which he clearly isn't receiving.
Blast me your hair, woman! Can't you see that this salty old sea corpse pines for your every gentle caress?
You know, I don't think my father would approve of me dating the undead. And you're probably too nice a zombie pirate for me anyway. Let's just be friends instead.
Eventually, he notices Guybrush and imprisons him in his brig to deal with later, starting our game. Our game begins with Guybrush locked away in a small hold, with the small amount of areas to explore in this chapter easing us into the gameplay. In this chapter, there are essentially 3 areas to explore: the hold that Guybrush is locked in, the exterior of the ship, and later, LeChuck's treasure hold. To begin with, Guybrush only has access to the first 2 areas, which introduce him to the main aspects of the gameplay, namely picking up everything that isn't nailed down, and talking to everyone. Fans of the previous games would likely know what they're doing in these types of games, having done so already in Secret of Monkey Island and LeChuck's Revenge. However, what they may notice is that the game does not have verbs appear at the bottom. Instead, Curse opted to take a more streamlined route and incorporated the verb coin. Holding down on the left button would allow Guybrush to see this coin and to select whether he'd want to touch something, examine something, or perhaps talk to someone or bite open something. Likewise, rather than the inventory appearing at the bottom right, the player could open this with a press of the right button. In the survey, I asked 407 recipients to answer whether they believed that the verb coin was a suitable replacement to the verb system originally found in Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2. 76.9% responded positively to the replacement, whereas 16% did not see this as a suitable replacement. 7.1% of those surveyed did not have an opinion on the matter. While in the hold, Guybrush meets with familiar face Wally, who Guybrush last saw before the duo are blown up in the previous game. Wally takes on the new mantle of Bloodnose, and is Guybrush's first experience of dialogue branches in the game. Dialogue branches are a large part of the game, and this eases the player into it. There is not much to explore and not many people to talk to in this part of the game, which helps make this part a bit more linear to help players find their bearings. The conversation with Wally also solidifies the nature of LucasArts adventure games, where the protagonist cannot die. Normally, antagonising a person brandishing a gun is never a good idea, but Guybrush does so to proceed, and it makes it clear that the player is never put into an unwinnable circumstance that would render the game unbeatable or Guybrush dying.
You're right, Mr. Wood. I'm just not a pirate. I'm not ferocious or bloodthirsty or hateful or anything. I'm not even unpleasant. Oh.
Oh, there.
The first part even includes a short minigame where Guybrush uses a cannon to blow up the undead attacking Elaine's fortress, which introduces us to the beloved character Murray, the demonic skull.
You've messed with the wrong skull this time.
While not necessary to talk to him at this part of the game, it definitely is worthwhile for the comedic writing.
Hey!
Eventually, Guybrush fires himself through the door, capsizing the ship, vanquishing LeChuck, and trapping himself in the ship's treasure hold. Much like the previous area, there is not much to do in this area. The game forces Guybrush to pick up some unworthy treasure, some wooden nickels, before he notices the fabulous ring behind it, which he uses to escape. This is a good example of how Curse of Monkey Island never puts the player into a position where they cannot win. The player is forced to have picked up all the needed items in an area before proceeding and never returning. In this example, Guybrush needs to pick up a few wooden nickels which are a requirement later in the game, while also collecting the ring, which is necessary for the plot to continue. The chapter closes with Guybrush escaping and meeting once more with Elaine, who he proposes to, only to be told by Wally that the ring is cursed, turning Elaine into a gold statue.
Hey, that looks just like the big diamond ring LeChuck had in his treasure hold. You know, the one with that ghastly, disfiguring voodoo curse on it. Well, I'm sure Guybrush wouldn't have given you that ring. Anyway, I gotta be going. I hear there's a tattoo removal place on this island that's Freckles safe. See you at the wedding.
Guybrush!
5.9% of responses indicated this was their favourite chapter in the game, whereas 2.2% clearly could not put up with Wally's wailing and selected this as their least favourite.
Oh no! Elaine? She's not gonna be happy about this.
For the second chapter, the main plot of the story unfolds, as Guybrush needs to find a way to uncurse Elaine. This opens up the first explorable island in the game, Plunder Island, which acts as a retirement island for older pirates, and contains many quaint features that will make your stay all the more welcome, such as Kenny's bottomless policy lemonade stand,
Hey! There's no bottom to this mug! Give me my money back!
I'm sorry. I did tell you about our bottomless mug policy, and there are no refunds.
Why, you little...
Thank you. Come again.
as well as the Barbary Coast, for when the mightiest of pirates needs the mightiest of haircuts. Now on the subject of the Barbary Coast, I would like to bring up the music of Curse on Monkey Island, because for me, this is where I truly appreciated the soundtrack for the game. Curse on Monkey Island also saw the return of video game composer Michael Land, who had worked on the music in the previous games, and boy did he nail it. Out of all the Monkey Island games, I feel Curse's soundtrack is my favourite. While the music in the other games is fantastic, I have to say that the leap in quality is clear. The Barbary Coast has my favourites in the soundtrack. When you enter, you're treated to the pirate wonder of the Barbers. However, the characters within the Barbers have their own renditions that work well with the characters. For example, Haggis's rendition feels stronger with an emphasis on brass instruments using heavier notes, which conveys Haggis's quite literal beefiness. But perhaps my favourite theme comes from Rottingham, whose theme incorporates an accordion and gives a more aristocratical impression, along with an also French feel. In the survey, I asked how many people were satisfied with the music for Curse on Monkey Island, and an overwhelming majority were happy, with 97.5% selecting satisfied and only 1.2% being unhappy. 1.2% of those surveyed did not provide an opinion on the music. I also asked how people would place the game's soundtrack compared to the others in the series, with 1 being their favourite and 5 being their least favourite. 39.6% of those surveyed selected Curse on Monkey Island's soundtrack as their favourite in the series, followed by 31.4% selecting it as their second favourite and 19.2% selecting it as their third favourite in the series. Following this, 2.7% voted this as their second least favourite in the series, and 2% considered this as the worst in the series, while 5.2% of responses did not give an answer. I couldn't agree more with the love for the soundtrack, which I think is just absolutely some of Michael Land's best works. Sound-wise, Plunder Island also features some prominent voice actors, such as Alan Young voicing Haggis, who you may know also played Scrooge McDuck from Disney.
By the spirling bouffant of me great Uncle McManus! Never before have I seen such strength!
Kenny Falmouth is another celebrity appearance, having been voiced by Gary Coleman of Different Strokes fame.
Hi, my name's Kenny Foulmouth. It sure would be neat if you would buy some of my lemonade. It only costs a nickel.
Unlike the previous part, Part 2 is more open and as a result requires a lot more ground to cover. As a result, players may have struggled with knowing where exactly to go. This prompted me to ask those who participated in the survey if they used a walkthrough to complete the game, with 52.3% admitting that they did, and 47.7% saying they didn't, either because they're super adventure games, or they're just in denial. Own up guys, I won't judge. I also asked participants on how fair they found the puzzles in the game, with 85% of those 407 responses responding that they found the puzzles logical and fair, and 5.2 indicating they found the puzzles illogical and frustrating. 9.8% of those surveyed indicated they had no opinion on the fairness of the puzzles. I also asked if they had any examples of unfair puzzles, with many citing a few puzzles arising from this chapter. One of the key examples I saw was the snake puzzle where Guybrush is eaten alive. Another is a Mega Monkey explosive puzzle where Guybrush needs to steal a gold tooth from Blondbeard, using helium and chewing gum and then searching a mud puddle nearby. One of the questions I also asked in the survey was, out of the 5 games in the series, from Secret of Monkey Island to Tales of Monkey Island, how they would place Curse of Monkey Island's difficulty, with 1 being the most difficult and 5 being the least difficult. Most of those surveyed placed Curse of Monkey Island in the middle, selecting that this was the 3rd most difficult game in the series, followed by 16.2% placing it as the 2nd easiest in the series, and 10.8% declaring it the 2nd most difficult in the series. Only 2.9% of those surveyed believed that Curse of Monkey Island was the easiest in the series, whereas 1.7% considered the game to be the most difficult in the series. Overall, it appears that many people saw Curse of Monkey Island as pretty run-of-the-mill when it came to difficulty. Perhaps not too difficult, but also not too easy either. Guybrush finds himself tasked with achieving a few goals before he can leave Plunder Island, to find Elaine, who is stolen by pirates, to find a map to Blood Island, where a ring said to be able to dispel the curse is kept, and to find a ship and crew to sail to Blood Island.
Are you guys pirate barbers?
We prefer the term buccaneer hairstylists.
Great! Maybe you guys can help me find this huge diamond ring I'm looking for.
Diamond ring?
Yeah, it's supposedly enormous, and it's on Blood Island.
Blood Island?
Never heard of it.
It's a funny story, really. I need it to lift this curse that's turned my girlfriend into a solid gold statue.
Solid gold?
Wait a second, did I just share too much?
During these tasks, Guybrush normally has to portray some deceit or trickery to proceed. For example, to hire Haggis onto his crew, Guybrush needs to pull up a rubber tree so that he can use it in a caper toss. Or when Guybrush challenges Edward from Helgen to a banjo contest and shoots his banjo when he can't beat him. These are some of the areas I love about adventure games. Unlike other games where the player is an unstoppable machine of unrelenting force, adventure game protagonists are squishy and very vulnerable. Rather than tackling their foes and problems head on, the player often needs to think outside the box and trick them. Essentially, Guybrush is expected to cheat and lie. After all, he is a pirate. And what pirate game would this be without the inclusion of maps? The game also incorporates a prominent theme that is seen throughout the series. Maps often aren't as simplistic as they should be. We've seen it in The Secret of Monkey Island, where Guybrush uses dance steps to locate the treasure of Mealy Island, and we saw it in LeChuck's Revenge, where he uses song lyrics to explore LeChuck's fortress. Curse is no exception, as Guybrush needs to use a map to locate Elaine. Rather than being traditional compass directions like one might expect, the steps are actually the buttons that Guybrush needs to press in the theatre to control the lights, marking the X where Elaine is buried, which is also the only realistic place that she could be buried. But hey, nothing could ever be simple in the world of Monkey Island, eh? At least the map to Blood Island looks simple enough, although getting it isn't. Gross. When I asked those surveyed to name their favourite part of the game, 23.3% indicated that their adventures on Plunder Island were their favourite in the game, while 2% were obviously too terrified by El Pollo Diablo and wanted off the island immediately, indicating this was their least favourite chapter in the game. Well, they're in luck, because as soon as we have Elaine, our ship and our crew, as well as a map to Blood Island, we're off, and we sail into our next chapter.
What say we head on to Blood Island to lift the curse and save Elaine? How about it, guys? Let's get moving towards Blood Island. Let's head on out and find our fortune, guys. This might be more difficult than I first imagined.
Free Sheets of the Wind sees Guybrush and his crew at sea, where Guybrush loses the Blood Island map to a rather bald Renee Rottingham, who bests him at sea insult swordfighting, which differs from the insult swordfighting scene in Secret of Monkey Island. Rather than simply use witty responses, Guybrush needs to use wit and also rhymes in his responses.
I'll skewer you like a sow at a buffet.
When I'm done with you, you'll be a boneless fillet.
The chapter tasks Guybrush with retrieving the map to Blood Island through challenging other pirates to learn their insults, much like in The Secret of Monkey Island. To ease the player into the concept of rhyming, the game has Haggis and the crew start singing, where they rhyme everything that is said.
It was a rousing battle, Captain.
Aye, and it reminds me of a song. We're a band of vicious pirates.
Sailing out to sea. When you hear a gentle singing,
You be sure to turn and flee.
Oh, this is just ridiculous.
At least they do in the English version of the game. Due to rhyming difficulties, it looks like this was omitted from the other localizations of the game. Like the first game, Guybrush attacks pirates to best them through a manner of trial and error, where he learns more insults and comebacks, but the game also adds in ship-to-ship combat. At the time, I would probably say that the game would have looked like this.
fire! Should we order, sir?
But nowadays, it's a bit more redundant. As Guybrush combats his enemies, he learns new insults to gain victory, thus providing him with loot to return to Porto Polo on Plunder Island, where he can purchase new cannons to attack stronger pirates from Kenny Falmouth. Eventually, Guybrush meets and combats Rottingham. Much like the Swordmaster of Mealy Island and Secret of Monkey Island, Rottingham uses his own insults, but the responses to them are the same as Guybrush learns. Eventually, Rottingham relents and the crew are back on track to Blood Island.
Battle.
So give me that map, take your ship and skedaddle.
You win, you'll get your map back.
You were doomed from the start, you kleptomaniac.
All right, I give up already.
It's no wonder you lost with a sword so unsteady.
Merci, I beg you, no more insults, please.
Your smell and face remind me of moldy old cheese.
Ah!
The third chapter of the game was well received by 5.4% of participants, who ranked this chapter as their favourite in the game, although clearly 7.4% of participants just wanted to shut up the crew's singing, with them selecting this as the worst in the game. Fortunately, a storm puts all that singing to rest, and leaves the crew shipwrecked on Blood Island, leading into part 4 of the game: the bartender, the thieves, his aunt, and her lover. The fourth chapter focuses on Guybrush's adventures on Blood Island. Much like Part 2's Plunder Island, Blood Island is openly explorable with several locations. Some of the island's features are the Good Soup Hotel, where you'll be dying not to leave, and a nice little vegan cannibal village situated on a volcano that is sure to be a blast. And don't forget about visiting Blood Island Cemetery. It would be a grave mistake to miss out on it. And hey, if you're a little disappointed by the antiquities of Blood Island, then you're in luck, because Skull Island is just a quick boat ride away.
That's a duck.
What are you talking about? Don't you see the skull?
This island doesn't look like a skull at all. It looks like a great, big, enormous duck. It should be called Duck Island.
Well, you see, you gotta squint and sort of turn your head and... Ooh, it's just so scary.
If you squint and turn your head, it looks like a bunny.
Well, anyway.
Where you can enjoy fun activities such as card games with the friendly residents.
You blew out the lights! I got the diamond.
Not for long, you little...
Hit him, not me, you cretin!
Who are you calling a fool?
There he goes! Get him!
Due to the open nature of the island, I assumed that a lot of people would have difficulties on where to go, like in Part 2. Earlier, I asked if people had some examples of puzzles in the game that they considered illogical and frustrating, but there actually didn't seem to be many Blood Island puzzles that caused issues. One person mentions one particular puzzle where Guybrush needs to swap a mirror for a cut-out portrait of one of the bartender's relatives in order to trick him. On Blood Island, Guybrush's task can be broken down to 3 main goals: to find a way to remove the cursed ring from Elaine, to find a wedding band, and to also find its diamond, to reverse the curse, which was sold to smugglers by LeChuck.
Good afternoon, I'm the new Skull Island Diamond Inspector. I'm going to have to see every diamond you've got. Every last one. Come on, people, chop chop. I don't have all day.
I do not like this man. Kill him.
Darn. Let me try that again.
The island sees Guybrush meet locals, such as a very hungover Griswold Goodsuit and the hotel's only patron,
Madam Eczema.
Zima! Madam Zima! Madam Zima! Madam Zima!
Earlier, the voodoo lady warned Guybrush that she sees that Blood Island will be the place where Guybrush dies, and Madam Zima's predictions don't quite help discern any concerns.
The card says death. Once again, it is death.
Hit me.
Death?
How many of those cards do you have, anyway?
Ah!
What is it? Is that a good
It is death.
However, as it turns out, Guybrush's death is nothing but a short-induced coma, in a somewhat Romeo and Juliet manner. No harm done, aside from maybe some permanent brain damage. The game also likes to break the fourth wall, and consistently nudge the player to remember that this is a LucasArts adventure game, where it's inconceivable for the main protagonist to die.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's dead.
I guess that's the end of the game, then.
What with him being the main character and all. Funny. I didn't think you could die in LucasArts adventure games.
Well, maybe they're trying something different.
Guybrush is initially buried in the Blood Island crypt, where he meets once again with Stan, who he locked in a coffin in the previous game.
I don't mean to scare you, but anything smaller than this, we might have to cut off your loved one's feet. I hear you knocking up there. That's solid oak you're hearing. Yes, it sure is nice in here. Hey, I think the lid's stuck. Excuse me, friend. Could you see if the clasp is closed on this thing? I seem to be stuck. Hello? Is anybody out there? Yoo-hoo! Help! I can't get out of here! Okay, a joke's a joke. Now get me out of here! Open this coffin right now!
Fortunately, the salesman bears no ill will towards the man who locked him in a coffin and instead offers up a life insurance company. Stan isn't the only familiar face we'll see on Blood Island, as we also see a return of the cannibal Lemonhead, who appeared originally on Monkey Island in the first game.
Hey, wow, this is impressive. Lemonhead, take a look at this.
Ooh, that's nice. And it says, made by Lemonhead, just like one of mine.
We're also treated to an ambush from the lovable demonic skull Murray, who has somehow found his way from Plunder Island to Blood Island.
Oh, I'm not going to do that again. I think I broke my skull. I'm all skull.
It's your own fault. Stop scaring me like that.
So I did scare you? Really?
Well, startled is more like it.
Oh.
But startled in a terrified kind of way. You really are very, very scary.
Don't talk down to me.
I really don't have any choice.
Much like in Chapter 2, many of the solutions in the game involve some form of trickery and deceit. For example, to be buried in the Goodsuit crypt, Guybrush needs to pretend to be a member of the Goodsuit family, even going as far as to deface a family portrait and make Griswold think he looks like family.
Uncle Griswold, it's me! Don't you recognize me?
Recognize you? I've never seen you before in my life. What is your name?
Hearty Beef and Potato.
Hearty Beef and Potato?
I come from good Irish stock.
Guybrush also commits life insurance fraud.
I'm cashing in this insurance policy. Give me a lot of money.
But this is a life insurance policy. You collect when the policyholder dies.
No, honest. I was dead for a really long time.
And you just got better?
Well, yes.
And uses this to gamble on Skull Island, where he plays against the formidable King Andre, voiced by Dave Fennoy, who you may know as the voice behind Lee Everett in Telltale's The Walking Dead. Even when gambling, Guybrush needs to cheat using his own cards, since, well, everyone else is doing it, so why not you? After reuniting two undead lovers in the afterlife, Haggis with his love for melted cheese, and besting the smugglers of Skull Island, and maybe some murder on the side.
There's just one thing I need to do first.
Really? What's that?
Who's there? Oh, it's just you. Wait, what are you doing? Help! Help! Ah!
Guybrush finally breaks the curse on Ilian, and after a short reunion, the two are captured by LeChuck's skeletal forces, The 4th chapter in the game appears to be where most of the love for Curse shines. I asked 407 people to select their favourite chapter in the game, and a clear winner was found, with 45% selecting the bartender, the thieves, his aunt and her lover. Compared to this, 2.2% were clearly too frightened by Murray and voted this their least favourite in the game. The 5th chapter of the game opens with Guybrush and Elaine captured, and LeChuck gloating about his evil plans to Guybrush in a relatively long dialogue branch. The game also explains that Big Whoop was a portal into the afterlife that could transform a person into the undead. Ron Gilbert has mentioned that this was not even close to how he envisioned the game. In fact, he has indicated that he had his own ideas for the game, which he refers to as Monkey Island 3A. I've also asked those surveyed if they believe that the new writers adequately explained the revelation of Big Whoop laid by the last game. Out of the 407 responses, 43% did not believe they adequately explained this, compared to the 31.2% who did. 25.8% of those surveyed did not give an answer. It does appear to show a bit more of a divide on whether Curse of Monkey Island explained some of the leftover plot points from the previous game, and of course, it is difficult to address this without the input of the main creator of the game, who alone would know the secrets of the series. Eventually, LeChuck turns Guybrush into a child once more, but for some reason didn't seem to think about locking Guybrush's prison. There isn't particularly a reason for this either. Guybrush doesn't need to trick his foe or distract him. He just walks out, which I find kind of disappointing. Usually, Guybrush succeeds in outwitting his foe, but in this, LeChuck's own downfall was that he forgot to lock his enemy's prison. This leaves him able to wander around the Carnival of the Damned, where he can meet beloved characters such as Wharf Rat and the ever-popular Dingy Dog. Attractions here include a Guess Your Age and Wait stand, an ice cream stand, and well, I guess that's just all we're going to get. So much for a fun carnival. Big Whoop. Oh, I get it. The goal of this part of the game is to enter the Big Whoop roller coaster. However, Guybrush is too small and young to enter the roller coaster due to LeChuck's spell. In order to cure himself, Guybrush needs to use a hangover cure he previously used in Part 4 to reverse the curse. The gathering of these ingredients are done in an improv manner that is seen throughout the Monkey Island series. Often when Guybrush has a recipe to follow, he sometimes has to use an alternative, such as using a Jolly Roger as a human skull in Secret of Monkey Island, or the use of a monkey as a monkey wrench in LeChuck's Revenge. In Part 4, Guybrush follows a pretty literal version of the recipe. He finds an egg, a pepper, and also some hair of the dog that bit him. In Part 5, these exact ingredients are not available. Instead, Guybrush needs to substitute in some new ingredients. For example, the meringue from those pies would contain egg, and it looks like we have some pepper here to use. Now for the hair of the dog that bit you.
Alright, that does it. You're going down, little punk. Ow, he bit me. Give me back that hair, kid. You're ruining the suit.
Well, that's disturbing. While I do appreciate the idea of finding substitutes, I also don't really understand this puzzle. The idea for the recipe is for curing hangovers, not sudden bouts of infantilism. I don't know about you guys, but I've never drank too much and had to phone into work the next day because I reverted to the age of 6 again. For me, this might be an example of an illogical puzzle, but I suppose one person surveyed put it best. Illogical puzzles can be part of the fun in Monkey Island and other adventure games. Now for some reason, the guy who spent ages searching for Guybrush doesn't seem to recognise LeChuck's thorn in his side, and doesn't seem to have any qualms about letting him on the ride, leading him into the 6th and final part of the game. The 5th chapter of the game was viewed less favourably compared to the previous parts in the game. While 1.7% selected this as their favourite chapter, 12.8% were clearly just too bored by LeChuck's long evil plan.
La 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 la, I can't hear you. La 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 la.
Part 6 follows Guybrush's misadventures on the Monkey Mountain roller coaster, as he is chased around by LeChuck in a mannerism similar to LeChuck's pursuit in Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. Unlike the previous game though, there is not much in the way of exploration. Guybrush linearly proceeds through 4 screens on repeat, where you can disembark from the roller coaster ride and explore the stages, with LeChuck appearing if he spends too long on a screen. When he does, he sends a fire barrage at Guybrush, causing the pirate to duck into a passing by car. Guybrush needs to gather items from these stages to complete a trap for LeChuck. When I asked for people's opinions on puzzles that were illogical and frustrating, a few people pointed out this final chapter, citing it as frustrating and repetitive due to the time limit before LeChuck appears and sends you on your way. After devising a trap involving a keg of rum, an oiled up rope and some pepper to spray at LeChuck's face, the demonic pirate is trapped in ice, and the game ends with Elaine and Guybrush sailing away, married, with no words uttered. The final chapter, Guybrush Kicks Butt once again, was reviewed the most negatively in the game compared to the previous 5 chapters, with only 1% of those surveyed selecting it as their favourite, whereas 37.6% chose this as their least favourite, probably because they get sick on roller coasters. I also asked if people were satisfied with the ending of the game. The reason I asked this is because I've seen some people indicating that the ending is pretty abrupt and disappointing. In a review in Computing Gaming World issue 164, they indicate that the game ends without much development, and indicates that this is their main letdown for the game. Out of 407 responses, 55.8% indicated they were satisfied, whereas 32.2% were not. 12% of those surveyed did not provide a response. Personally, I am a little disappointed in the ending, as it feels like the game just ends with no real payoff. Apart from my final appearance from Murray, that's always priceless.
Run, mortal, but do not forget your arch-nemesis Murray. Mark my words, I shall return to haunt you. Do you hear me? I shall return.
However, it seems that most of the surveyed people disagree and were fine with the ending, not allowing it to sully their experiences in the game. And that is Curse of Monkey Island, a game that, despite not being led by the same visionary that began the series, is still well received and appreciated today. At the end of the survey, I asked that out of the 5 games in the series, from Secret of Monkey Island to Tales of Monkey Island, how those surveyed would rank Curse of Monkey Island, with 1 being their favourite and 5 being their least favourite. Of 406 responses to the question, 32.3% voted this as their favourite in the series, whereas 28.8% voted it their second favourite in the series, and another 28.8% voted it their third favourite. Following this, 7.6% of players voted Curse of Monkey Island as their second least favourite in the series, and 1.5% ranked it as the worst in the series. 1% opted to not give a response to the question. Overall, it looks like the consensus is that Curse of Monkey Island ranks highly amongst players. Even Ron Gilbert himself has came out and praised the game, which he acknowledges is good despite not matching how he wanted Monkey Island 3 to pan out. For me personally, I love Curse of Monkey Island, as it was my first foray into the series, although I would probably classify LeChuck's Revenge as my favourite in the franchise, but I do see why people would vote this as their favourite. I think the introduction of the graphics did help the game, even though it's often debated today. And even though Ron Gilbert wasn't involved in the game, I believe Curse manages to continue the humour and wit established by the previous games, even if it goes a little off the rails with its explanations. If you enjoyed this reflection, then please consider liking and subscribing. There will be plenty more like this in future, but this isn't to say that our Curse of Monkey Island survey has ended, as I had one last question to ask, which is perhaps the most crucial of all. To end with, I ask you all, what really is the secret of Monkey Island? Now, I'll be honest, I did not expect for such a large response to the survey. So 271 of you gave your opinions on what this could be. Rather than read all of them out and risk making this video too long and destroying my voice, I've elected to simply reading out my personal favourites. The secret of Monkey Island refers to the fact that the location of Monkey Island is a secret. It's not indicating to a secret within Monkey Island, just that Monkey Island is the secret. Now I like this, but if this were the case, why would Guybrush constantly ask about it then? Wouldn't be a secret if I told you. Ron, is that you? It was Earth all along. Well, they've certainly made the monkey out of us, that's for sure. I don't know, but I'm disappointed I didn't get to moan about a few things in this survey. Why is he a fire pirate all of a sudden? Also, parts 5 and 6 are basically the same, mate. It's actually a fair question. I don't know either, but damned if he did not look cool. Also, not to nitpick, but part 5 and 6 are literally called part 5 and 6 for a reason, so let's go under the assumption here that they are actually different. No. That's all that's written, and I love it. So you put this here on the off chance that Ron Gilbert fills out the survey, right? Dude, don't give me away like that. George Lucas's original script to continue Star Wars in the 90s. The way the first game ended, with the title The Secret of Monkey Island, and then immediately saying, featuring Spiffy as the dog in the bar. As a kid, I always thought that Spiffy was the secret of Monkey Island. My god, it was under our noses the entire time. Not even Ron Gilbert knows, despite what he's saying. Well, you see, I have discovered a truly marvellous proof of this, which this margin is too narrow to contain. Never pay more than $20 for a video game. A lot of you said this. I'm glad you're all upholding the golden rule of video games. But what do you consider the real secret of Monkey Island? Feel free to let us know in the comments. If you've managed to watch all the way to the end, thank you so much. I also want to thank the International House of Mojo and LucasArts Adventure fans who helped distribute the survey, and everyone who participated. I hope to see you all again soon. Bye bye.